What's going on, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to The Drop, which is a weekly series I do right here on the YouTube channel, where I go through the top video game releases of the week and let you guys know what new games are coming out and what platforms those games are coming out on, just in case you did want to pick up something new to play. And this week we have a pretty big week on the Nintendo side of things, as well as a new UFC game to talk about. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. So, kicking things off, we have UFC 2 coming to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and surprisingly, there is no PC port even to compete with WWE 2K16, which is a little bit shocking. I figured they would be competing with the only other fighting franchise that's really out there and in the public eye, but that's a side note for another day. After a hiatus in 2015, UFC is back with UFC 2, and it contains all the enhancements that you would expect to find, including better graphics in both gameplay as well as fighter detail, and more players on the roster, so you have more options of who you want to play as. Pretty much everything you would expect from a semi-yearly franchise release. However, this entry into the franchise also introduces some new ideas that are very, very welcome to the franchise, including the knockout physics system, which pretty much makes KOs feel more visceral, rewarding, and more authentic than ever before, which of course KOs are a pretty big part of the entire Ultimate Fighting Championship in general, but also dynamic grappling, next level submissions, and ultimate defense are all features that give the control scheme more depth than ever before, and it pretty much gives the player more control over the character within the game, and I think that is a pretty big idea in UFC because of the nature of the sport itself. If the fighter himself cannot control his own body, then he's not going to be able to control the fight and win at the end of the round. That's just kind of how it goes. So the fact that players have more control in UFC 2 leads me to believe that these games are getting more and more realistic, and of course realism is a huge part of any kind of sports game, especially one where a fighter is fighting another person. That's a huge part of it. Between various modes, online and offline, there is plenty of gameplay time within UFC 2, so if you're a fan of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, a fan of fighting games in general, or perhaps you're wanting to try a new kind of sports game, UFC 2 is coming to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One this week. Next up, with the Summer Olympic Games coming to the city of Rio de Janeiro, it is time for Mario and Sonic to give the competition a shot with Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games for the Nintendo 3DS. And of course, it is coming out on the 3DS this week. It's coming out on the Wii U on June the 24th, so when that version of the game comes out, we will talk about it. But as far as the 3DS version of the game goes, it's pretty much a large collection of mini games featuring Nintendo characters completing the trials of the Summer Olympic Games that are going to be coming up this summer, as the name kind of hints at. So of course you can expect to see all of the trials that you are normally going to be getting with the Summer Olympic Games within Mario and Sonic. However, a couple of them are given the spotlight because they are new or returning after a long hiatus to the Summer Olympic Games themselves this year, including soccer, beach volleyball, and golf, all of which sound pretty fun in the form of a minigame featuring Nintendo characters. I mean, what minigame doesn't sound fun featuring Nintendo characters? But for anyone who is a fan of that kind of thing, or a fan of Nintendo, or a fan of the Summer Olympic Games, this one is coming out on the Nintendo 3DS this week and a couple of months later on the Wii U. Finally, last but not least, we have Pokkén Tournament coming to the Wii U, and this is following the release of the game's arcade debut in Japan last year, which was well received by fans, and it's nice to see this game coming to the Wii U. If you haven't heard of it, it pretty much is developed by Bandai Namco, who also develops Tekken. So they pretty much took the gameplay of Tekken and combined it with the world of Pokemon, which seems to be a pretty good match because of the way that Tekken actually plays. Of course, Tekken is a pretty famous fighting franchise. I'd be surprised if you hadn't heard of it, but it pretty much is a slower version of Street Fighter, which means that you do more methodic planning. You're kind of figuring out how you want to string your attacks together, as opposed to Street Fighter, where you've pretty much memorized a string of commands and you're developing these huge strands of attacks that takes down the enemy almost instantly. Tekken is a little bit slower than that, and I think that complements the world of Pokemon very well because of the tactics that are also involved with Pokemon itself. So at launch, there are going to be 16 playable Pokemon and 30 non-playable Pokemon that are kind of summoned in the match to kind of help the main character out, and over the course of the next couple of months after release, more are going to be added through DLC, so you're not going to be stuck with those 16 characters throughout the entire lifespan of the game. Now, as far as gameplay goes, you pretty much have individual abilities for each individual Pokemon, just like you would in the Pokemon universe, and as you deal more damage to your opponent, you're building up your synergy gauge to get up to a Mega Evolution, which is pretty much the equivalent of a Super in Street Fighter 4. Now, this game was wildly popular with the Japanese crowd, so you might want to check it out if you are into fighting games, if you happen to have a Wii U, or you want to see what a new version of a Tekken game might look like featuring Pokemon characters. This is definitely the title for you. So there you guys have it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, drop me a like down below and share this video so that more and more people can find the channel. And of course, if you are over on twitch.tv, I stream live every single Saturday night at twitch.tv/PrettyChillGuy311. While you're here, be sure to click on the links down below and check out my channel and my other content. But as always, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for watching this particular video. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.